Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell and I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs and I've been in business for the past 28 years, since 1994. Today is Sunday and I'm going to give sort of a preview of what I want to talk about this week in this podcast series. It's going to kind of be a series this week. What I want to do this week is really talk about, getting real. What is the method to the madness? What do people need to hear? So I'm going to do different things on like body types and owning your goals and like what's truly good for you. Different things like that. I get questions, responses from people who take fitness serious and as far as knowing it can be a life changer. So I really like their input. I'm going to talk a little bit about concurrent training this week. That means like training to meet your goals and what does the research say on doing cardio exercise and strength training. Like, is it advised to do both if you have different goals? I'm going to talk about that. That sounds like it might be a little bit off topic with the other stuff, but it's really not, because it actually fits in perfectly, because I think so often we don't understand what really leads to results, and so we get a little bit confused. And if we really understand what leads to results and all the lies and information out there, the disinformation that's out there, then we'll get a better grasp of what kind of training we really need to be doing. In other words, what really leads to results. And then the answer as far as should I be doing cardio and strength training and to what proportion comes a little bit more clear. But I'm definitely going to get into that too as a physiological standpoint. Before I get into today's sort of preview, I want to thank our sponsors, Jonathan and Lynn Gilden at the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They sponsor this show. They do a fantastic job in real estate. I absolutely vouch for them. They have over 275-star reviews on Zillow. That's really, really good. I have a bunch of 5-star reviews on Google, so I know that matters. I mean, you have to really, set up an account to be able to do that. Not anybody can just go in and randomly give a rating to somebody. So if you've got that many, you're treating people right. And I think this day and age, we can all agree that customer service is very, very valuable and needed. And again, I vouch for them. So if you have any real estate needs, please give them a shout at 386-451-2412. Okay, so let me preview a little bit of what I want to talk about. I got into this industry and I try to talk about it a lot because I think it's important. Unconsciously, I think I got into it because I struggled with some weight issues when I was a teenager. And in my middle to later teen years, in those very, very, very vulnerable times for kids, I got overweight. I still really don't know how much. Like, we always judge ourselves so much more harshly than we really were. But I know enough where I get called fat, and I called myself fat and all those things. And so I changed that late in my teen years, prior to my senior year of high school, by simply eating right. And so I do believe that really set the tone for me wanting to get into this industry. Like, at the time, I didn't necessarily go, oh man, this is so awesome, I want to make a career of it. No, but I do think those early seeds were planted. And then, as I shared in the last podcast, when I was working basically in the field of psychology and helping people with substance abuse, I found myself being more passionate about the physical fitness side of things. Like, I was so interested into it because I was so into working out. At the time I was doing more bodybuilding style training where I'm hitting the gym every day and doing different muscle groups and all that. And I ate healthy and I brought water to work and all that good stuff. And I just loved talking about it. It became an interest to me. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to go into the field of personal training or physical fitness. I really didn't know how to do it, but I figured, personal training was a good way to do it. And but I wanted to do it right. I don't know. I've always been a believer in education. I mean, I do think there is some over-education, for sure. And I have some criticism of today's education, especially higher education, but that's not what this is about. But I do believe in education. And so I wanted to do it right. Like in my mind, it's like there has to be like a science behind this. Like I didn't want to just, I don't know, maybe I felt like I was throwing my bachelor's in psychology away if I never used it and I never pursued more education. I really don't know. I just know that like in my early 20s when I wanted to get into this, I wanted some higher education. I wanted to do it right. I have to just keep saying that. And so I got into school, and I've already talked about that. I got accepted, and I got my graduate degree and my master's degree in exercise physiology and wellness. And pretty much I started personal training a little bit before graduating. Like I'd already gotten my feet under me and all that, and I was ready to roll. So from that day on, I wanted to spread the right word of physical fitness. Look, there's certifications out there, and I have 2 of them, and I think I have 2 of the best. And I do think they're valuable, and I absolutely think that they're better than not having anything at all, for sure. But they don't replace education. They don't replace science. They don't. They don't get enough into it. And the classes I took in my graduate degree, were obviously scientific classes, exercise physiology, environmental exercise physiology, all of those things, the physics, everything was scientific in nature in the program. And then there was a couple business classes, but most of it, if not 80 to 90% of it, was science-based classes. You had to know how the body worked. You had to know anatomy. You had to know physiology. You had to know all of the different systems of the body, not just, how to do blood pressures and stuff. I mean, that gets taught later. Those are skills that you should have if you work in allied health. But the purpose of the education was so you really understand the method to the madness. What's really going on here, and going into it, I didn't know a lot. I did some reading. I mean, I was really into working out, so I read some different books, and, books are definitely better than magazines, but they still don't replace journals, and they don't replace textbooks, I mean, obviously a textbook is a book, but, for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's an icon in bodybuilding, has written, 3 or 4 or 5 books on how to be a bodybuilder. And anybody in my generation, growing up, we read his books. I mean, and there's some value to it, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is not educated in exercise physiology. I mean, I've got nothing against Arnold. I think ultimately he's been a pretty good role model in physical fitness, but at one point, I think he was the czar for physical education, appointed by one of the presidents. I don't remember which one. And I was thinking, oh, what are you doing? Yeah, he was a decent actor. At least his roles were good. If you were into working out, you saw Terminator and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he was a fantastic bodybuilder. I still think he had an amazing physique when he competed. That was before bodybuilding turned into a freak show. Back then, they just were maybe a little overly big, if you don't like that, but at least they weren't freaks. I mean, Arnold had a great body. And there's no question about that. I don't take that away from him, but he is not an expert on physical fitness. So he, wrote his books and we read them. And so that's better than reading Muscle and Fitness and some of these silly magazines out there that are nothing but advertising. But, they're still not learning what you're really supposed to do. I mean, in his books, he would say, work, chest and back 2 days a week, and work legs on this day, and work shoulders and arms this day, and do 3 exercises per muscle group. And all that, what we would call in the industry acute program variables, which, they have a place. But if you don't know why, like, okay, so why are we in this rep range? Like, what is happening to the muscles when we stimulate them to a certain point? Then you really shouldn't be a czar of anything, And so getting into the XPhys program, we got into the whys, the cardio. We studied every system, the cardiorespiratory system, the skeletal system, the neuroendocrine system. Like, we study the systems and see what exactly goes on when the body is facing stress, because that's what exercise is. It's a form of stress or stimulation, whatever you want to call it. Stress or stimulation, and then what is the response, and then what is the adaptation. See, that's how we get more fit. There is a stress or stimulation, like maybe a set of bench presses. There's a certain amount of stress, and now we're stimulating a certain set of muscle groups, in this case the pectoralis major and triceps, and then secondarily the anterior deltoids. And then there's a response, meaning more blood flow, more lactate, more tension on the joints. All those things are responses. And then if we recover properly, then what is the adaptation? So the adaptation is what we're seeking. The adaptation is, what does the body do to adjust to the stress? If it doesn't change, why are you training? But of course it changes. So what is that adaptation? What did the body do to adapt to the stress? In the case of strength training, it adapts by creating more muscle fibers. I should say the muscle fibers themselves have been basically pulled apart, stripped, and made to be a little bit bigger. When you feel DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, that's the process of that happening. The muscle fibers have been stretched and taken to their extremes, and then they come back by essentially creating more muscle fiber within the muscle fiber. So in other words, the muscle fibers are getting bigger, and that's called hypertrophy. And the number one reason why we get stronger is greater cross-sectional area of the muscle, which we call CSA. So that means as the muscle gets a little bit bigger, cross-sectional size, it now is a little bit stronger, and then guess what it can do? It can withstand the stress next time. So again, this podcast isn't about the exercise physiology of building greater muscles. That's just an example of what is the method to the madness. Like, why do some of these acute program variables work, and why do they not work? And from that, we learn what we really should be doing. And so the people who are called experts, the bodybuilders, the fitness influencers, oh God, I saw, why do I even go down this rabbit hole on Twitter sometimes? So I don't even really want to say the person's name, because I guess she's kind of famous and I don't want to offend anybody, whatever, it's really not worth it. But anyway, they posted pictures of her butt in a pair of spandex, and I guess everybody just thinks her butt is the greatest thing in the world. To me, I'm not overly impressed, but whatever. Different look these days, I suppose. And then I'm like, okay, so this is somewhat about fitness. I'm going to read the responses, and what a mistake, because everybody was like, well, you shouldn't say that because she's this fitness expert. I'm like, fitness expert? Like, what are you talking about? And I keep reading, and it's like, she's some sort of influencer. She's some basketball player's girlfriend, and that's why she was there. But, everybody's defending her, saying, oh, no, you don't understand. She's this major expert on fitness. And I'm thinking, how did this start? How is she an expert on fitness? Because she may or may not have a nice rear end, that doesn't make you a fitness expert. And of course, this is Twitter, which isn't really reality. And I just go on there mostly. I get the sports scores, and I like looking at stuff like that. But occasionally, I'm like anybody else. I'll get sucked down into this rabbit hole of no return. And no, I don't comment on any of that. I'm not about to get into that stuff. So the point being is, like, these people actually do have followers. That's what's scary. Not that they're doing it. Not that they're doing it at all. Like, whatever. I mean, if you've got the body and you've got, like, people, following you on Instagram, and then if you get enough followers on Instagram, well, then you're an influencer, and then you start getting free products of the stuff you wear, or the supplements, or the food, or whatever. Okay, great. And then if you get even more views than that, I'm just trying to educate people that don't understand that there's an actual industry out there. And you might be thinking, duh, we've known about this forever. But if you get to a certain level of followers, then you actually get paid. So what's scary is the people that follow them for fitness advice. They'll post these ridiculous videos of an exercise, and they claim they do it this many times, and this times per day, and all this kind of stuff, which is 99.9% of the time total bullshit. It's always misrepresented, always. And then people will actually do the workout, and then wonder why they're not getting results, or wondering why they don't have these fantastic glutes like so-and-so has, and not realizing, and this is a big part of the thing I'm going to get into this week, which is, there's different body types out there, and, you can work out all day long and eat perfectly, and you may not ever develop a certain body, and that is fine. Why do you want to develop it anyway, And hopefully towards the end of the week, I touch on that too. Like, what's it going to do for you? Like, you finally get there, and then do you look in the mirror and you go, you know what? I'm now happy. I'm now complete. I crushed it. I am so good in my life. But you know what? That never happens. So you're wasting your time. If that's what you're doing this for, it's not going to happen. I mean, in yoga and in Eastern, not religions, just thought, I don't want to, whatever. It's not really religious, but, the thought is beginner's mind. Like, you don't get there. If you're trying to reach a certain point of this zenness, I mean, good luck. I mean, it's supposed to be about getting a little bit better every day. So if you think, and it really, 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 really pisses me off. I just don't know what to do about it other than spread the right word. I have a 19-year-old daughter who I love dearly, and she's a great kid, and God, thank God she doesn't really get influenced by this stuff. She has 2 fit parents, so I worried a lot, is she going to grow up with any kind of issues regarding body type and stuff? And I was very, very cognizant of that, working in this field a long time and working with clients who have eating disorders, and then have kids who they're worried about getting the eating disorders. Not that it's contagious, but it is environmental. And so I was very aware, so I was always careful not to push. I never made fat jokes or any of these things, to kids that is so inappropriate. Hey, Tubby, gonna have another big gulp? Don't do that to young kids, especially girls. Never told her she needed to exercise, never punished her with exercise, never any of those things, because didn't want her to grow up with any type of issues towards it. And thank God, at least as far as this stage of her life, she doesn't seem to have any of that stuff. She picks up exercise here or there, and whenever she does, I say, hey, great, that's awesome. Never push her into it. I feel like she'll get it if she wants to one day, and she's naturally pretty thin, and she's a beautiful girl, so it's not like I don't know, she seems very healthy that way, so and again, thank God. But I do think, well, what if she's following these people? And thankfully I don't think she does a whole lot. But what if she is, then you're steering my daughter and you're steering other people's daughters down the wrong road, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because you may or may not have a nice body that's probably been modified, and you're putting out there that you do all this, and then people are going to follow your routines and they're going to wonder why they're not getting where they need to be, and it's because you don't have any idea what the hell you're talking about. You're not even healthy to begin with, from what I see with most of these people that do all this, and you are not a role model. So the scary thing is like, why are we still believing it? Okay. And that's what this is going to be about this week is, we need to get real. Who are the people that you're listening to? And I'll just wrap up today's segment talking just a little bit about this. So I want to talk about this week about you are what you are. And the goal should be be the best version of yourself. Be better than you were yesterday. It's really that simple. And, I coach different types of athletes. I coach, in the adult world, I'll coach the triathletes, the runners, the bodybuilders, people like that. And, I've lost clients in the triathlon running world because they don't come out and say it, but there's two reasons, but I'm only going to focus on one of them today. And by the way, I really don't care. I'm honestly so, fortunate to say that I'm busy that I really don't care. Sometimes literally on the schedule, we're wondering who, we need to get rid of. And I'm not trying to be a dick by saying that. It's just, I don't care. So when I talk about like losing a client, it's not like, it's like, oh no, and I'm really not being cocky. It's more like good riddance most of the time. But in the case of this, it's like, because there's sort of the connotation that I'm being negative when I tell them that most of this stuff is about genetics and not like, your training. And people need to hear that over and over and over. There's this old book that I don't know who borrowed it from me, but man, oh man, I'd love to have it back because it's not in print anymore. And it was something like, I think that it was obviously an 80s book because the woman and man on the cover, had that 80s look to them, And I think it was called Sports Selection or something like that. And it was just a great book. I loved it, and it was right up the alley of my belief system. And that's why the couple that gave it to me, I was teaching an old wellness class back at Florida Corf when I was working on my master's degree. They let me work with the ex-patients of physical therapy who wanted to come back for exercise. And man, I loved it. Fell in love with these patients. And we stayed close. We stayed friends after it all ended. And so, they gave me the book. Hey, Rob, I thought of you when I read this because you're always saying this. And I read the book. And basically what it did was it took each sport and then talked about what you need to be successful, And when I mean what you need, I'm talking your genetic capabilities. So when I talk about that with people, it's almost like they don't want to hear it. It's like, oh, I'm somehow being negative. You're telling me I can't do something. And I'm like, dude, that's not what I'm saying at all. If you were to, here's a funny one, and I'm not taking anything away from this gentleman that we all know because, literally yesterday on Twitter, there I go again, I was defending him as I'm saying I think he's one of the top 5 athletes of all time, and he was left off many lists, this silly list that I, for some reason, decided to take part in. Anyway, I put him on my list, and it's Michael Phelps. I think he is he is absolutely one of the greatest athletes to ever live. And I don't know, maybe number one, he won more gold medals than anybody. Come on, what else can he do? But anyway, if you were to ask most people, so what made Michael Phelps? What made Michael Phelps? So many people are going to go, oh man, his work ethic. It's like, oh yeah, honestly, I know that to be pretty good. His training plan was great. Yeah, all that's true, but you know what? Size of his feet. The man had boats, and he had huge hands. It was such a genetic gift for him to be a phenomenal swimmer. He'd be the first to tell you, you have fins now back there. And that is not taking anything away from the man. It should make you laugh a little to go, really? That simple? Yeah. I mean, obviously he had everything else too, but the point is like, swimmers are born, they're not made. Runners are born, they're not made. Cyclists are born, they're not made. Bodybuilders are born, they're not made. Linebackers are born, they're not made. Like, you can't train yourself into something you're not. And that's not freaking negative. That's real. What's negative is saying you're not going to try anyway. That's your fault. That's negative. Instead of saying, well, why do I want to be Michael Phelps? I'm not. Why don't I just want to be better at swimming? Right. That's what it's about. But too many people are like, they get into triathlon or they get into running and they're like, I don't know, man. I keep busting my ass. And I'm not as good as these elite women out there. They're running this, they're cycling this, they're swimming that. And I'm like, okay, you're a different body type. So what? Are you better than you were yesterday? If you look at an elite runner and they're female, most of the time they're going to be somewhere around 5 feet tall and 105 pounds soaking wet. I mean, it's just physiology and physics, man, right? I mean, and they have very small calf muscles, so the weight of actually lifting their calf isn't overly energetic. It doesn't require a lot of energy. So, that's where you take somebody like Phelps, man. Now you say, all right, let's see you go running. He's got to move them flippers out there. You're going to be lapping him going, what's wrong with you, Michael? You suck. You must not train hard. You must not have a good aerobic system. And he's like, dude, my feet are 3 times bigger than yours. Give me your little 5 foot, feet shoes and let me tap, 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 tap and run a 5K, right? This isn't taking any work away from anybody. It means there's a reason you're not on the podium. And it's not usually because you don't work hard enough. And it's not usually because you're on the wrong plan. It's usually because it's not in your genetics. Body types matter. They matter big time. And we have become a society of being way too preoccupied with everybody else. I don't have a man crush on Michael Phelps, by the way, for all my friends out there that like to joke, and I'm really kidding right now, okay? I mean, I'm just being funny because I'm gonna congratulate him again, and it's gonna make some of my male friends go, oh, man crush. It's like, no, I think Ryan Lochte's way better looking. All right, there you go. I just gave you something that's funny, right? Hopefully funny. I don't know. He is, right? It's built. Anyway, no. So another thing about Phelps was I saw this great meme on social media yesterday, and he was in the pool, and it was during, I'm guessing, one of his Olympic runs, and it looks like he might be doing breaststroke or butterfly. That's what the stroke looked like. But he had his face so geared at the wall, it was just fixated on the wall. And the guy next to him was maybe, half a stroke behind him. He was maybe at Phelps' torso, and Phelps' head was where his head should be, and the man's head was somewhere at his torso in the next swim lane, and it showed him looking directly over at Phelps, not at the wall, not on his form, not focusing on finishing the lap. He was focused on Phelps. And that is such a great illustration of our society today. What are you worried about? It doesn't matter what you are compared to somebody else. Are you better than yesterday? That's the key, and that's what I want to get into this week, and the method to the madness of how we get there. And let's cut through the bullshit, okay? Let's cut through the bullshit. Don't follow these ridiculous fitness models unless they have education next to their name, okay? Because the racehorse does not know how it got fast. That woman who you might be idolizing didn't make herself that way. I promise you that. She's gifted, and maybe she absolutely takes care of herself well. That's awesome. Congratulations. But she's not an expert. And that man you might be idolizing in his baggies, going to the beach, and his shirt off, and he's got the six-pack abs, and he's flexing them a little bit. He's got the nice biceps going down the side. Only follow him if he also has at least a master's degree, preferably a PhD or something, next to his name as a fitness expert. You want to ask, whatever. You want to ask him what kind of shorts he's wearing because they look good, more power to you. But if you're trying to get fitness advice from a model, what the hell are you doing? I mean, come on. You're going to go up and ask, Dan Marino how to build a Corvette because he's driving one? Because he's being used in the advertisement like he was? You're going to then go up to him and ask him for performance advice on the Corvette? That's stupid, right? Well, so is following fitness influencers that don't have any training in fitness experts. It's just as dumb. They don't know, all right? They have no concept. Remember that. You cannot ask the racehorse how it got fast. I mean, you can, and then you better hope it's Mr. Ed talking back to you. But you're not going to get an answer, people, okay? Not one that counts. All right, so let's do it. Let's get better than yesterday. Let's unfollow people who basically don't know what the hell they're talking about and they're just selling you a bunch of bullshit. And start following people that know what they're talking about. And most importantly, follow your gut. Follow your gut and quit worrying about other people. Be like Michael Phelps. Stay in your lane. Look forward. Complete the task. Don't look at the guy next to you. It doesn't matter what he's doing. I promise you that. Hey, he has absolutely no impact on your life, that person who you're watching. Just follow yourself, all right? Until next time, be Max Fit and be Max Well.